Okay, so in this video, I am not going to be breaking down what is in these bottles. I am going to be strictly giving you grow instructions for the feeding schedule for your plants, whether you're growing indoor or out, and when to give the nutrients specifically, whether you're growing indoor or out. You're here with Mark Batwell at perfectgardens.com. So now that we're done with all the formalities, I would love to know, what is your favorite nutrient line and why do you use it? Please leave a comment below so I can learn more about what you guys are doing in your grow room. Okay, so to just talk about a few terms, just so that we all get on the same page on knowledge, is EC stands for electrical conductivity, ppm stands for parts per million. Both of these are different ways of measuring basically how much salts are in your water. Every single nutrient line has been designed for using RO water or distilled water. So just to be clear, if you are using tap water, these numbers and these suggestions will adjust. And you may notice irregularities or problems like nutrient lockout or any of those things because the chemicals that are in these bottles may react with the chemicals that are in your tap water. Last but not least is your conversions. The most important one to remember is your 1 teaspoon equals 5 mLs or 1/3 of a tablespoon. 3 teaspoons equals 15 mLs or 1 tablespoon. These two are the most important for measuring out your nutrients. Okay, so as you can see how I've set it up, you have Big Bloom, Grow Big, Tiger Bloom, Flower Kiss, Boomerang, KANGAROOTS, MICROBREW, Wally Mackerel, KELP Me, KELP You, and BEMBE. Last but not least, you have your Open Sesame, BEASTIE, BLOOMZ, and CHING. Make sure to stay to the end of the video for additional tips and tricks with this nutrient line so you can max out your ROI and be able to assist your plants on helping them reach their full potential this growing season. Okay, so let's get started. So when you're going by the Fox Farm feeding schedule, you can see seedlings and clones. Right here, they're telling you their flower cycle, 18 hours on, 6 off, and you have the recommended EC measurements between 0.6 to 0.8, and your parts per million should be between 420 to 560. You'll be adding 6 tablespoons per gallon of Big Bloom. If you are using their additives, you'll be adding 1 teaspoon of Boomerang and a half a teaspoon of the holy mackerel per gallon. Okay, for your seedlings and cuttings, from right when you get them into the ground all the way through the first week, your feed schedule will stay the same. Your EC range will be between 0.6 to 0.8, and your parts per million is going to be between 420 and 560. Your Big Bloom, so this one right here, you'll be adding in 6 teaspoons per gallon. If you're adding the additives, you'll be also using Boomerang and holy mackerel. Boomerang will be at the rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon, and holy mackerel will be at a half a teaspoon per gallon. And just like they say right here, you can feed up to twice a week. Obviously, there are going to be some plants that take up nutrients faster than others and process the nutrients that you're giving better than others. So you're going to want to adjust the amount of times you're feeding per the ratio of you watering, dependent upon the signs that your plants are giving you. If the plants are getting tip burn or they're curling over or they're drying out, if the leaves don't feel like a leathery, elastic leaf, then there is some type of issue going on, whether your room is dehydrated or you have salt deficiencies or you're over fertilizing. So make sure that when you're following this feed schedule, you also want to stay in tune to your plant. And also remember, you can always adjust these rates as well. So if you feel like you are giving too much, just cut it in half. Go from 6 teaspoons to 3, and go from 1 teaspoon to a half, and then the same to over here. You might just keep this at a half. And by cutting the nutrients in half, you can then feed your plants twice a week with that half diluted nutrient. So there's a lot of wiggle room through this whole process. If your plants are showing signs of over-fertilization, well, you might just dilute it a little bit and still give it twice a week. Or maybe you just don't have time to fertilize very often, and normally what you do is you mix one large batch, you give it to your plants, and the rest of your grow room is on a drip irrigation system. So in that situation, you might want to do one heavy feed once a week, which would be at the 6 teaspoon or a regular feed. And then the remainder of the week, it would be your drip irrigation or regular watering. In the military, they would always tell us that we have the tools for readings, but don't base your decisions 100% off those tools. Make sure to look at your patient and remember to make decisions based off your present situation, not just what the readings or the tools are saying. In the same situation with this, your feeding schedule is a tool. Your plants is what you want to get in tune to. Okay, so for the rest of the schedule, I'm not going to be telling you to dilute stuff or to increase concentration, because I've already told you from the very beginning, all the way through this entire nutrient line, you're going to want to stay in tune to your plants. And if your plants can handle the nutrient line and be fed, then keep feeding them. But if they're showing signs of struggle or stress, then I probably would back off things that are going to be causing slight additional stresses or forcing your plant to have to work harder. Everything's work, from your plant having to process the nutrients, to collecting light through photosynthesis, to fighting off the bugs. All of it's work. There are good stresses and there's bad stresses. And if you don't give enough nutrients or you give too much, it could be a negative. But if you give just the right amount, it can be a positive. Okay, so second week of veg, your EC will begin to increase to 1.8 to 2.1. Your parts per million are going to increase to 1,260 to 1,470. Your big bloom, you're still going to be giving it at a rate of 6 teaspoons per gallon. You're going to start to use the Grow Big now, which is this one right here, at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. If you're using their additives, you're going to use the Boomerang at 1 teaspoon per gallon, the KANGAROOTS at a half a teaspoon per gallon, the MICROBREW at a half a teaspoon per gallon, and the Holy Mackerel at a half a teaspoon per gallon. When you move into week 3 of veg, your EC is going to increase a little bit more, to 2.3 to 2.8. Your parts per million will increase between 1,600 and 1,960 parts per million. Once again, you'll be giving the Big Bloom at a rate of 6 teaspoons per gallon. Grow Big, you'll increase it to 3 teaspoons per gallon. If you're using their additives, you'll begin to incorporate a foliar spray program using their Flower Kiss at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. You'll still be using their Boomerang at 1 teaspoon per gallon. You won't use the KANGAROOTS. You'll still use the MICROBREW at a half a teaspoon per gallon, the Holy Mackerel at a half a teaspoon per gallon, and you'll begin to use the KELP Me, KELP You at a quarter teaspoon per gallon. Up to this point, whether you were growing indoors, outdoor, greenhouse, hoop house, light depth, it will stay the same. So if you were growing outdoor, from when you started your seeds all the way up to the second week in July, beginning of third week. So if you're using the sun and the natural light cycle, you would follow this in the beginning, first week, second week. Although in the third week, if you were growing in California, this would be the third week in June. Although you would keep feeding at this rate until the third week of July. And then on the third week of July, going into the fourth week of July, you would then transition to line item number 4. If you were once again using the natural outdoor sun light cycle. If you were growing indoors, you have complete control over your veg time. So once again, your seedlings is right here, first week, second week, third week, and you would stay in this week until the week you chose to switch over from 12 on to 12 off. You would actually transition into week 4, the week before you switch over into flowering. So just to be a little bit more clear, let's say you were going to switch over to flowering on the 7th. Well, you would begin to give this on the 1st. This is a transition week right here. So during your transition week, if you're using the outdoor cycle, that would be the third week of July. So whether you're using the natural light cycle to flower out, or you were growing indoors, you would begin this transition week the 3rd week of July, or the week before you flower once again if you're growing indoors. You are looking for an EC of 2.5 to 3.0, a parts per million of between 750 and 2100. You'll be giving Big Bloom at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon, Grow Big at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon. If you're using their additives, you'll once again give a foliar spray program. I would recommend once a week at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. You'll be using the Boomerang at 1 teaspoon per gallon, the KANGAROOTS at a half a teaspoon per gallon, the Holy Mackerel at a half a teaspoon per gallon, the KELP Me, KELP You at a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon, and you'll begin to use the Open Sesame, which is down here, at a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. And just like Open Sesame says, it's going to start the flowers, opening your season, right? So Open Sesame. And right here, you can see it is at a 5/40/10 if I am reading that straight. So it's going to be really promoting your root growth as well as starting your flower development in your P and K. Okay, so the start of the 1st week of flowering or your last watering in your veg week or your first watering in your 1st week of flowering, you're going to want to flush your plants. There is a lot of salts that you're giving your plants this week, and most likely if you're feeding your plants twice a week, then you're only watering your plants once a week. And when that happens, a lot of salts build up. And so what you want to do is you want to get those excess salts out of the soil. This is going to allow your plants to not get nutrient lockout and for you to have a higher quality experience at the end of your harvest as you consume your product. These flushes are incredibly important, especially as you start to give Open Sesame, Beastie Bloom, and CHING, because as you can see, their NPKs are quite high. 1st week of flowering, when you're using the natural light cycle, is going to be the last week of July. As you can see, you're looking for an EC range between 2.5 and 3.0, or a parts per million between 750 and 2100. Big Bloom, you'll be giving a rate at 3 teaspoons per gallon. Grow Big, you'll be giving a rate at 2 teaspoons per gallon. Tiger Bloom, which is a new one right here, you'll be giving a rate at 2 teaspoons per gallon. If you're using their additives and you've incorporated a foliar spray program, you'll be using Flower Kiss at a rate at 2 teaspoons per gallon. Boomerang at a rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon. MICROBREW at a rate of a half teaspoon per gallon. KELP Me, KELP You at a half a teaspoon per gallon. Open Sesame at a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. 2nd week into flowering, you're looking for an EC range of 2.8 to 3.0, a parts per million of 1960 to 2100. You'll be using Big Bloom, Grow Big, and Tiger Bloom at the same rate as before. You'll be using Big Bloom at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon, Grow Big at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon, Tiger Bloom at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. If you're using their additives, you'll be using Flower Kiss in your foliar spray program at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon, Boomerang at a rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon. You'll be using Kangaroo this week at a rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon. You will not be using MICROBE or Holy Mackerel. And you'll be using KELP Me, KELP You at a rate of half teaspoon per gallon. And you'll be using Open Sesame at a rate of a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. 3rd week into flowering, your EC range will be between 2.8 and 3.0. Your parts per million will be between 1960 and 2100 parts per million. You'll be giving Big Bloom at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon, Grow Big at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon, Tiger Bloom at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon, Flower Kiss in your foliar spray program at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon, Boomerang at 1 teaspoon per gallon, MICROBREW now at a half teaspoon per gallon, KELP Me, KELP You at a half teaspoon per gallon, and you'll be using BEASTIE BLOOMZ this week at a rate of a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. At the end of this week or at the beginning of your 4th week, you're going to want to make sure to use the sledgehammer to flush and get all those salts out of your growing environment. Your fourth week in flowering, you're looking at an EC rate of 3 to 3.3, or parts per million between 2100 to 2310 parts per million. You'll be using Big Bloom at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon, Grow Big at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon, Tiger Bloom at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon, Flower Kiss in your foliar spray program at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. You'll be using KELP Me, KELP You at a rate of a half teaspoon per gallon. You'll begin to use the BEMBE at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon. And you'll be using BEASTIE blooms for 1 more week at a rate of a quarter teaspoon per gallon. Started the 5th week into flowering, which is actually one of the most important weeks into flowering because it is the start of your plant really putting on its yield. Between the week 5, 6, and 7, it's going to be putting on its most amount of yield. So if your plants aren't healthy going into this week, they will not reach their full potential in terpene profile or in density. So if you're wondering why your plants don't harden up, there is a chance you might have a strain that's fluffy, but most likely it's because they were battling some type of sickness or stress weeks 2, 3, and 4 as they went into weeks 5, 6, and 7, and were never able to recover fully. Week 5, as you can see, your EC is going to begin to drop. You're looking for a range of 2.5 to 2.8 or a parts per million between 750 to 960. You'll still be giving Big Bloom at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon. You're going to decrease Grow Big using it at a rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon. Tiger Bloom, you'll use it at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. You'll continue with your foliar spray program at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. You'll use MICROBREW at a rate of a half teaspoon per gallon. KELP Me, KELP You at a rate of a quarter teaspoon per gallon. Your BEMBE at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon. And you'll begin to use CHING at a rate of a quarter teaspoon per gallon. Week 6, you're looking for an EC rate between 2 and 2.2, or parts per million of 1400 to 1540. You'll use Big Bloom at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon. You're going to cut off Grow Big because you really don't want to be giving any more nitrogen at this point. You don't want to be producing foliage. You want to be producing flower development. Just put all the attention there. So you'll be using Tiger Bloom at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. You will continue with the foliar spray program using Flower Kiss at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. You'll use BEMBE at 3 teaspoons per gallon and CHING at a quarter teaspoon per gallon. So at the end of the 6th week or the beginning of the 7th week, you're going to want to once again flush your plants using Sledgehammer at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. Your EC rate will continue to decrease. You'll be looking for a rate between 1.4 and 1.7, or parts per million between 980 and 1190. You'll use Big Bloom at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon. Tiger Bloom at a rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon. You'll continue the foliar spray program using Flower Kiss at a rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon. You'll use BEMBE at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon and CHING at a rate of a quarter teaspoon per gallon. At this point, it doesn't matter if you have a 6-week flowering strain, a 7-week, an 8-week, a 9-week, a 10-week, 11-week, even a 12-week flowering strain. Your nutrient feed is going to stay between these 2 columns, especially if you have a flowering strain that goes past 10 weeks. Some strains do finish out as early as 7 weeks, so you might want to decrease. You might want to cut off a center week right here if you do have a strain that finishes off in the 7th week. But although from just about everyone, your strains will be finishing out between week 8 and week 9. So you're going to want to stick to this program if you are using the Foxfire line only in your grow schedule this year. Okay, so for the last and final week, your EC rate will be between 1.4 and 1.7. Your parts per million will be between 980 and 1190. You'll be using Big Bloom at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon. You'll be using Tiger Bloom at a rate of 1 teaspoon per gallon. You'll continue with the foliar spray program using Flower Kiss at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon. You'll use BEMBE at a rate of 3 teaspoons per gallon and CHING at a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. On the last and final week, you're going to want to make sure to use the sledgehammer at a rate of 2 teaspoons per gallon to flush your plants and get any of these excess salts out. By doing that, you're going to have a much higher quality experience with your end product. One additional thing to remember is you'll be adding in all of these nutrients into the same gallons. So it doesn't matter what is in this column, except for the foliar spray. The rest of them will be added into the same gallon. And remember, you always want to go from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. So you're always going to want to take your nutrients and mix it into the gallon of water. You're not going to want to take your nutrients all together, mix it together, and then put it in your water. That will cause your salts to combine together. So for one last additional example, it doesn't matter whether you're week 1, 2, 3, 5, or 8. All these things will go into the same gallon, except for your Flower Kiss, which is a foliar spray program.